So
We got to zoom in and watch some of that, so make sure.
I think you have everything.
All right.
Commissioner Kinzer,
Here.
Commissioner Rock,
Here.
Commissioner Moss,
Here.
Commissioner Milfield,
Here.
and Commissioner Brown is absent.
All right, we have a quorum. And got a couple items on housekeeping that we need to address in the first part of the meeting. On this, Brian, do you take over on the housekeeping items or how do we,
And Michelle will also.
or Michelle?
As promised, it will help out with the bylaws and motions and those sorts of things. So yeah, first off is we need to select a chairperson for the 2023 session of Planning and Zoning Commission.
Do we nominate or how does?
Uh,
Nominate, yeah. I make a motion that we accept Robert as chairperson for the coming year.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I was you supposed to do that? Or?
I did not confuse.
Go on that
Well, I
one.
guess for temporary. All right.
Got it done anyway, so.
Accept the nomination and thank you very much, everybody.
I guess we could have given you a second to think that.
Something different was gonna happen or what?
Didn't happen.
Okay, and then we got to review and approve the 2023 bylaws. I don't believe there was any changes, was there, Brian? I didn't.
Not.
Okay, I didn't notice any changes in there, so they're basically the same bylaws that we've had for the past year. Anybody have any questions on the bylaws or any comments of wanting to add or change anything?
Nope.
Mr. Chairman, this is Bill Punkany, attorney for the city.
Yeah, Bill.
Hey, so it also says in the bylaws that there's a vice chair, and maybe I missed it, but I didn't hear you guys vote on a vice chair position.
I thought that automatically reverts to the longest serving.
This is an
Commissioner.
It's an interesting dilemma on this, however, because
I'm,
Nemec and Commissioner Kinzer were appointed with the same motion from the city council.
oh,
And are now the second type for the second most senior.
That's not true. I don't think.
you're one after me, I
I
think.
was one after you.
But I
Here I
would
shook that.
probably go towards Ryan because I am going to be moving
That's also.
within the next
Okay, yeah, within the next few months,
few
if
months.
we let
The
them go.
the long and the short of it is you don't appoint a vice chair. It is whoever
Whoever-
automatically is the most
Okay,
senior of the chair.
okay, so we don't have, so I guess at this point you would be that until
Until
you were done and then you would roll to Brian.
be
Okay.
prepared.
Be prepared.
Okay,
Study up. Got it.
yeah, so that's what I thought I read in the, so I think we're good there, Ryan, or Bill.
Sounds good.
Is there anything else anybody want to do any changes, or I'm open for a motion to approve the current bylaws?
Move to approve. As written.
A second.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries and the bylaws have been approved. Okay, I'll move on to the approval of the December 6th planning and zoning minutes. Everybody's had a chance to review the minutes. Is there any questions or corrections or any comments on the December minutes?
So I don't recall I was absent in that meeting. Do I vote on that?
If you have reviewed them.
I've reviewed them. Okay, good.
I make a motion, we approve the December minutes as written.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve the minutes. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion is carried. The minutes are approved. All right, we'll move to the preliminary development plan review. We have a pre-application for 301 Rio Vista Boulevard, Michael and Lauren McKinnon. Are they here or are they online?
Let's see them on the sign-in sheet. I do not see them online. So I don't know what that's.
They're not online or anything on the phone that we're on? If you're on,
On the phone.
there's nobody on the phone. Okay, so we know they're not, well. At this point, we will skip over. If they show up, we can try to fit them in after the case, kind of go from there. All right, we'll move on to the consent agenda. We have 2 items on the consent agenda. Has everybody had a chance to view those? If there's anyone that you want to pull off and speak about individually, let me know. Otherwise, we can motion and move forward with the consent agenda.
I move to approve. We have to list the 2 individually or just the consent?
Just the
agenda
consent
items?
agenda, yeah.
Move to approve the consent agenda items.
Second.
We have a motion to approve the consent items and a second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Hearing none, the motion is approved. Consent agenda is approved. Right, moving right along. Moving to old business, PUD 2204, CUP 2204, design review 2206, and scenic route 2204. On to be determined Elo Road, the hatch design or store it. Do we have Jeff Hatch or Steve Gleason is going to present? Oh, who would like to present the? Okay, you come up and take your name and address.
Jeff Hatch with Hatch Design Architecture. Our address is 200 West 36th Street, Boise, Idaho 83704. Good evening, Commissioners. Thank you again for your consideration of our new development application. As a brief recap, as it's been a couple months, proposed site, the highway and Elo Road. So to the west of us, we have logging. We have an existing storage facility on the proposed site. We also have animal shelter to the north, church and some storage to the north, mostly vacant land and a church to the south, and primarily residential. Next slide. From our previous application back in April, this was our original proposed plan, which included a bus stop, a satellite fire station, and a range of storage facilities. And on the next slide, I was just going to recap the changes that have transpired since then. So the proposed amenities before you today for our development are improvements to make a pedestrian pathway along Elo Road, as well as a pedestrian pathway along Sampson Trail. We have removed the satellite fire station and are actually proposing an actual fire station, which would be keynote number 3 here, close to the highway and Elo Road. And then we are also appropriate to propose 120-foot wildlife corridor easement, which would be a recorded easement on the property for access for the wildlife within that access corridor. Next slide. One of the requests from the commission was, and the engineering staff, was to have a little bit thorough grading and drainage plan, which was provided. A summary of that. One of the questions was storage on site. Required for the parking, sidewalks, and drive lanes is 83,000 feet, 33 parking. We've provided in the shading area, which is primarily on the west, over that, but basically at 100% of what's required. And then in addition to that, about 30% of our site is designed on site from the structures themselves. So storing snow on the rooftop wouldn't necessarily be required. It's about an additional 120% snow coverage for the entire development. But again, the nature of maintenance of facilities of this type, it's better to design the structures to store the snow on the actual structures themselves And then you're really just focusing on following the drive lanes, and any of the hardscape lots. So we do have a couple small sections here, and the majority of it would be relocated down to the southwest. Next slide. Another request was for a little bit more thorough utility drainage plan. And so those were also provided in your report. In this particular case, we have an existing stormwater swell on the front of the development to the west, and we will be utilizing that for some of the additional capacity. We also have an existing well and an existing fire pump and water tank. In looking at the proposed use of the office and also the fire station, it was deemed necessary to provide an additional proposed septic system. So that has been revised and is proposed here. As far as our updated landscaping plan, the landscape architect went ahead and added landscaping to the scenic byway to meet and exceed those requirements. We also worked on surveying and also identifying all of the existing trees that we preserved along Sampson Trail, because those are good, large, mature height trees. There was a range of additional landscape buffering that came out of our neighborhood meeting that was requested along Elo Road, which has been added for additional screening. And also, in particular, along the intersection of Elo Road and Sampson Trail, there was some request and acknowledgement at the neighborhood meeting that the neighbors would like to see some additional mature trees in that location. So to add new trees is great, but over time, those trees will fill out. In the meantime, that particular northeastern portion was a little bit more sparse than the balance going south. You can see here at a range of fairly dense trees, and then that starts to taper off as far as existing trees. So there was a request for adding some additional mature trees, higher caliber at that location. Currently, with that, we would be proposing additional trees beyond what is required. Next slide. We also worked with TLA, which is a traffic engineer, have them review and evaluate the site and the proposed project. Their findings, which are outlined here in the last paragraph, indicate that the existing two full movement access drive will continue to be able to accommodate the limited volume of traffic projected to be generated by the development. And the expansion generated traffic will limit impact on the operations of Elo and Highway 55. So we did want to make sure that that was professionally evaluated from a traffic engineer standpoint.
It's terrible. Excuse me, I can't hear anything in the back.
Yeah.
Is there any way you could speak up a little
Microphone.
or something? I mean, we're missing all.
We
We don't have any.
don't have any microphones, so.
Speak up,
Yeah, I can speak up.
Okay.
please. Thank you.
Next slide. We also reached out to the fire department to get their comments in regards to the fire station and to see if the proposed location and amenities that were proposed would be appropriate and well received by the fire department. This email is basically from the fire chief indicating that the proposed development sounds good and is consistent with what was discussed. Next slide. One of the requests from the commission at our last hearing was to stake the site, and in particular, the buildings along Sampson Trail in relationship to the heights of the proposed buildings. And what we found is, since the proposed buildings are 120 feet away from Sampson Trail, and they stick approximately 9 to 12 inches above the existing grade, you can't physically see any of the stakes from Sampson Trail. So these pictures are from Sampson Trail showing that. And that was also something that we were able to take the neighbors to and physically walk to those stake locations, identifying those finish building heights. Next slide. This is a conceptual rendering of the office, which would be along Elo Road facing the freeway. And as you can see, our grades go higher up in elevation as you go towards Sampson Trail. So you can see this sloping here continues to go up, bringing that building down. And so although it is a 2-story in this rendering, from Sampson Trail, it is substantially lower. Next slide. So this is a aerial conceptual rendering from Sampson Trail and Elo Road, looking back at the site and in particular some of the landscape improvements along that intersection. Next slide. This would be that same view, but down at the pedestrian level, looking from Sampson Trail towards Sampson Trail to the south and towards Elo Road's pedestrian trail to the west. Next slide. And here we have an additional rendering off of Sampson Trail looking south. This would be from basically the mid section of the site looking south. Next slide. This rendering would be pulled back from the opposite. So this would be the northeastern corner of the intersection of Sampson Trail and Elo Road, looking basically southwest at the site. Then this is a conceptual rendering of the fire station that's proposed on Elo Road near Highway 55. So as a brief recap of some of the future land use objectives, we feel that this proposed project encourages affordable housing. In many cases, affordable housing comes with a more compact footprint with more restrictive CC&Rs, which requires many people to store not only vehicles, but also even household goods off-site. We also feel it creates an urban growth buffer that surrounds the McCall area and preserve some of the open spaces, in particular, adding the requirement of that wildlife corridor easement to our site along the eastern property. Support a connected open space network and wildlife corridor. Plan for opportunities to support economic diversity and local jobs, and locate industry, warehousing, logistics, and manufacturing in proximity to appropriate transportation and utility infrastructures. Next slide. As far as some of the commission comments from our last hearing, the commission encouraged us to reach back out to the neighborhood and see if we could increase the harmonious nature of the proposed project. So we did conduct an additional neighborhood meeting on September 29th, which we were able to go over some of the revisions that were proposed. But in particular, as far as concerns that we were able to address and be reactive to in this presentation, was adding additional trees, being sensitive to the roof lines of the proposed development, and minimizing those in relationship to the viewpoints along Sampson Trail, and increasing the larger caliper trees added to the corner of Elo Road and Sampson Trail. There was concern about snow storage. It was not identified clearly in the previous application. And so we were able to clearly identify that. And right now, in addition to what's required, we have about an additional 30% on site of snow storage. The landscape along Highway 55 did not meet scenic route requirements. Those landscape plans, as seen in your staff report, have been revised to meet that intent and exceed it. And then concerns for the traffic study. The traffic study provided by our traffic engineer indicated that the full traffic impact study would not be required. And from their opinion of the traffic engineer, the proposed improvements will not have a detrimental impact on Highway 55 or Elo Road. From some of the emails in your staff report, as well as some of the feedback we got from our neighborhood meeting, there's still public concerns about 4 primary categories. As far as water demand and quality, the site has an existing well, and we don't propose any additional water on site. It's very low use, and the site drainage is primarily captured to the southwest, away from any of the neighboring developments besides the highway. As far as traffic, the traffic used in storage, and in particular this case with our traffic engineer, it's very low. And with the removal of some of the previous proposed uses, our engineer has been able to confirm that this will not have a detrimental impact on those roadways. As far as safety, the proposed PUD, or planned unit development, would include an extension of pathways along Elo Road and Sampson Trail. We feel that these pathways will drastically improve the safety on Elo Road and Sampson Trail. So you're not having to walk or ride a bike along the roadway or the bank of the road. You'll have a designated pedestrian access point that you can safely be off of the road, detached, for traversing that space. And as far as compatibility, this project provides a low impact use as a buffer from Highway 55 to the homes to the east. This facility will help to fill a need for storage in the community and the surrounding neighborhood. Proposed fire station will allow the fire department to have vehicles and equipment ready to go on the south side of the city. This will allow for quicker response times to those rural areas. The proposed expansion and the pathway system along Elo Way and Sampson Trail will also enhance the pedestrian connectivity south of McCall. And with that, I'll stand for any questions.
All right. Commissioners, any questions?
Not for me at this time.
I have a quick one. Lot coverage. I know the original proposal was like, I think in the notes here, it's like 45% or something like that. What is the lot coverage now as you've changed it?
I believe that's identified in our report, the site plans, the submittal packet.
But we have in the package the current one, or was that the original one before? Because I think they brought that back.
The numbers in the staff report, I don't think I actually got updated.
Okay.
But yeah, it's still well above the 10% maximum, less than.
Less than 45, greater than 10.
Yeah.
Got it.
And commissioners, this is Meredith Todd, Assistant City Planner. The plan set that you have in your printed packet is only the most updated version. And then upon request, we can scroll to whichever previous plan set you would like in the packet online.
Ryan, in their, oh, never mind, this is the original letter. I'm trying to remember the configuration between the last submittal and this one. The submittal from, I think, the June meeting, that letter has 37% open space,
Okay.
if that helps at all.
Yeah.
The updated site plan goes 29% lot coverage. Seems approximately correct.
Does that include the 2 lots or does that include just the?
I believe that is counting.
Okay.
From 45 to 29.
building 1 and 2 originally had designed for future office flex space. Is that still the case? No. That's what I'm trying to get us because we had so many different versions. So those are just strictly storage and no flex office space?
Those would not have an impact on the sewer, and those would not have a housing component at this time. Those were the two primary concerns with that, is you have an unknown use, an unknown utility with no time frame. So we want to just take that off the table. For confusion. So we have an office with a living quarter above, which you can utilize the existing septic that's being improved for the fire station. Be no other convoluted uses on the site.
And that office was the one there in building 1.
Correct.
That's the rendering that we saw.
The two-story rendering.
Yes. And then it slowly tapers back down to about 9 inches off the ground on the back.
And so that's looking like if you were standing in the parking lot there, looking that direction.
Correct.
Okay, and then building 2 is just straight up storage, same. Is it the same configuration as building 1? Like as far as what it looks like the elevation wise on the outside? Yes.
And you're saying the existing well is going to provide enough water for the fire station, the 30,000 gallon tank, and also the offices? You're saying it's not a very good well, or you're saying it's not a, you had a comment about that.
It is a good well.
It's a good one. Okay, well, I thought there was something that it was small, or it was not as big as it, that you want.
Septic, I think.
The
Yeah,
septic?
the septic system would need to be improved.
Okay,
Correct there.
I see.
What is the intended, I guess, use of the living space above building 1?
Uh-huh.
I mean, is that to rent it out? Is that the purpose of that, or is it just a,
No, it's for on-site security
okay,
and maintenance.
okay. The planning to put somebody there?
And you're saying also that the snow storage is going to be on the roof? Did I read that correctly?
Do we have-
Is that an ordinary procedure that happens in a lot of other facilities like this? Or, I mean, it sounds to me like it's a lot of extra weight. Could be on a heavy snowy year with a lot of precipitation. I kind of question that. How effective is that going to be?
Yeah, great question, Commissioner Ma. So as far as what's required by code.
Yeah.
We are meeting that and exceeding it by about 3,000 square feet on the ground. So what's required for snow storage for the site is being provided. In addition to that, we typically design these high alpine facilities to be engineered to be able to store snow on the roof themselves. So versus a traditional engineered facility, this is engineered for worst case scenario snow load. And then typically the structural engineer actually exceeds that. Most recently, we did one of these in Haley on a more compact site. And I like it because they're just plowing the drive lanes. And then the majority of it, they don't have an additional snow. Plus you have the maintenance of snow periodically falling throughout the day on patrons and people utilizing the facility, which is problematic from an operation standpoint versus plowing it once or twice a day based on the snow that you're receiving. You tend to have to maintain that almost on an hourly basis if you get a day where it's coming off.
Just a point of clarification, the roofs will hold the snow that falls on top of them. They're not going to put snow.
Yeah. I'm with you on that one then, Brian. Yeah, okay.
All right, commissioners, any other questions at this point? Can we go to staff report? Okay, all right, thank you. All right, Ryan.
Thank you. Yes, this application you all are rather familiar with, as you've seen it several times now. The applicant has provided updated documents from the last time you guys saw it with increased buffer along Sampson Trail. As they discussed, improved landscaping around the perimeter of the site, a smaller footprint, shorter buildings along Elo Road. Stated that they will apply for a record of survey to dissolve the lot line between the two parcels, the existing facility and the new one. Generally, it can meet our city code or our area of impact code, assuming they meet all the conditions of approval included in the staff report. There are obviously a lot more subjective elements to our code that I want to go through with you guys. Start with the conditions of approval. The first one is underlying zoning, Title IX of this code and other applicable regulations under this title and Title IX of the code are met, except as the applicant has specifically requested modifications to the standards as part of BUD. So the applicant is requesting a conditional use permit in conjunction with PUD to be allowed to operate in the residential state zone. And has requested deviations from lot coverage standards, a couple of other elements.
That was one of my questions first.
Yes, let me see what is actually left from there. There were a lot of them in the first couple rounds of this, and they whittled them down. Yeah, so it was just lot coverage. It was
Just lot coverage, no building heights.
right. The building height is a little under 35 feet.
And so the lot coverage is 10%. I mean,
The maximum lot coverage in the residential estate zone for a lot this size is 10%.
We figure they're at 30.
Yeah, roughly.
And that includes the hardscaping and the buildings or?
So our calculation in residential zones is buildings and covered decks and patios count at 100%. Pathways, sidewalks, plaza areas, things like that count at 50%, and then driveways and parking count at 35%.
Okay, that's what I was missing in calculations.
that it's a weighted percentage.
Yeah. I was like, how are we getting there?
So then the second standard is proposed uses shall not be detrimental to the present and potential surrounding uses, nor shall they be detrimental to the health, safety, and general welfare of the public. The physical features of the site, public facilities, and adjacent development uses shall be considered. So the site is obviously in a residential estate zone. It is surrounded by other residential estate and residential 1 acre zoning. There is existing storage facility on the site. There's a church to the north. And then the rest of it is primarily larger residential. The houses that currently exist along Sampson Trail on the opposite side of the street there are quite a bit closer than you would normally see on developments this size. So they're obviously going to be more impacted by impacts of just being that much closer to the street than they normally would be. That's something to keep in mind. Number 3, the density of the planned unit development considered as a whole shall be in substantial conformity with the density of the underlying zone. Since there's no residential component to this, we don't have any residential density calculation for it. But the intensity of the development, just on a commercial scale, is substantially different than what you would normally expect out of a residential development. Any variation from basic zone requirements must be warranted by design and amenities incorporated into the preliminary and final development plan. The applicant is proposing larger buffers as stated, and then a fire station and pathways as the proposed amenities to satisfy the PUD. 5 is about final development plans applicable. 6 is the planned unit development must meet minimal objectives of the McCall area comprehensive. Future land use plan calls for large residential on this site. Definition in the comp plan is large residential, single family primarily. So on its face there, it is tough to circle that square. However, reading the comp plan in its entirety, there's a lot of recommendations for infill development and serving facilities where infrastructure exists, and et cetera, et cetera. And so depending on how you philosophically view this, if it can facilitate smaller development in more compact ways without having to have garages on site and other locations in town, help in that way. The theory about having it as a growth buffer, I don't see as particularly valid. I think it is one that, especially given the proximity to the edge of the area of impact, may inspire additional development along the highway. There's also a lot of stuff in the comp plan about preserving and enhancing gateway viewpoints and corridors as you're coming into McCall from either direction. As you're coming north from Boise and McCall, this is one thing that you kind of crest that hill right by the church there and look down on this site. So it may be difficult to design it in a way that enhances natural features and other elements that are shown in the comp plan. 7 is existing and proposed streets and utility service must be suitable and adequate for the proposed development. So the applicant has provided a statement from a professional traffic engineer stating based on ITE counts and or trip generation manual and their own counts at the facility that it is unlikely to have substantial impact on Hilo Road or Highway 55. Sampson Trail is not mentioned at all in that analysis. Just interesting. Development agreement is not proposed this time, and there's no zoning map amendments. The last two items are not applicable. Then the conditional use permit standards are fairly similar. Number 1, consider conditional use in the zone involved, which is listed in the use chart for the RE zone as a conditional use self-storage facility. Be harmonious in accord with general objectives and with any specific objectives of the comprehensive plan and this title we have discussed. Be constructed, operated, and maintained to be harmonious and appropriate in appearance with the existing or likely character of the neighborhood, and that such use will not change the essential character of the surrounding area. Building design is definitely more commercial with metal siding and single pitch roofs and that sort of aesthetic to it. However, as they discussed, it's going to be pretty low in the site and not terribly visible once landscaping has matured. They are proposing additional landscaping and buffering to mitigate design concerns. Number 4 is not be detrimental to health, safety, and general welfare of persons residing or working in the neighborhood of such proposed use. It is unlikely that self-storage would be particularly harmful. We did receive testimony in earlier iterations that these tend to get used as offices for contractors and warehouse facility type uses, which are a little less determined at this point. Number 5 does not cause any substantially harmful environmental consequences to any land or waters within the planning jurisdiction. They meet their drainage management guidelines and stormwater requirements and all of that. I don't really see be particularly harmful to indoor waters. Not create excessive public costs for facilities and services, and will not be detrimental to economic welfare of the community. I don't see where excessive public costs is the issue here. Be adequately served by essential public facilities and services, including highways, streets, police, and fire protection drainage structures. Refuse disposal of water and sewer and schools. The applicant may be required as a condition of approval to mitigate changes. Again, I don't know that there's a lot of evidence that it will be deficient in infrastructure or services. Not involve uses, activities, processes, materials, equipment, or conditions of operation that will cause unreasonable production of traffic, noise, fumes, glare, odors, or other forms of pollution. Then based on their traffic analysis, they're saying that it is unlikely to have substantial impacts. Traffic, other forms of pollution are fairly unlikely. Have vehicular approaches on the property so designed as not to create a detrimental interference with traffic on surrounding private or public thoroughfares or adversely affect the pedestrian environment. They're proposing to include pedestrian pathways, which are obviously a net benefit. Driveway approaches appear to be fairly well designed and spaced adequately off of existing roadways. Not result in the destruction, loss, or damage of an important natural, scenic, or historic feature. They're not in.
Please speak up, sir.
Sorry. There are no known important features on the property. They are proposing additional buffering to retain some of the existing natural features and wildlife movement. Beyond a site sufficient size to accommodate the proposed use, including yards, open space, snow storage, wall-based fences, parking areas, loading zones, and design standards applicable. Again, this is quite a bit more intensive than other residential uses in the area, but it is a big lot. They have adequate snow storage and seems to be able to fit what they can fit in there. And then number 12 is have a minimal negative economic impact on the neighborhood or surrounding community, which I don't know. And I don't see where, I don't see evidence either way. And yeah, with that, I will turn for any questions.
All right, commissioners, any questions for Brian at this point before we have Morgan give her? Questions for Brian?
So it's unclear to me the traffic analysis, traffic study. Was that actually conducted or was it just a letter from a traffic engineer saying that they didn't assume there would be any impacts?
So it is a mix. If you remember back to, I believe this was June last time we had this in front of us, they had conducted some traffic counts using a game camera at their gate.
A self-study.
Yes.
Yes.
Essentially self-study. That was a component of the formal analysis from their traffic engineer. And then the other is the Industry Standards Institute of Traffic Engineers Trip Generation Manual that says self-storage facilities generally create X number of peak hour trips and X number of daily trips per day, and based on the numbers.
Right.
It's fairly.
Right. I guess to follow up on that question, those industry standards though are set for national standards, not necessarily local and what we have going on with our recreational
They
activities.
will typically have a weekday and then a PM peak and a weekend peak or something along those lines.
But not capturing
Right.
boat and snowmobile storage.
They account for the resort community traffic.
Any other questions for Brian at this point?
One more minor one, I guess, that I just heard was the wildlife corridor easement. Where is that on the,
That is
Property?
the 120-foot setback off of Sampson Trail there.
so along the road?
Yeah.
Just that parallel with the road.
Better than most places.
Placing that into an easement though would prohibit any construction in that area.
All right, Morgan, do you have more to add? Are you muted, Morgan? I see you're there.
Unmuted, it's not making noise.
She's trying to find her mic.
In the bathroom.
Morgan, are you there? Well,
Can you
I
hear
just have-
me now?
now we can hear you.
Okay, good. For some reason, my headphones weren't working properly. So I don't have much more to add to what Brian was commenting on. We are having our traffic consultants look at their impact study for traffic. I'll just piggyback off of that topic to start with. But they did review a similar analysis on the project up the road that was also proposing self-storage. And they did comment that it is a generally low traffic producing product. So that I think that it'll be a similar evaluation when we get back from Horrocks. Overall, their updated stormwater items are much better and follow our drainage management guidelines. There's a few more tweaks and calculations that need some work, but overall it looks a lot better than the first time that we saw this project. And that's mostly the remaining bunch of my comments. Nothing too much to add.
Okay. Commissioners, any questions for Morgan? All right. At this point, I believe we'll open it up to public comments. Give me just a second here. Brian, do you have the check-in list that you can hand me? Over there. Okay, for the public comment, we'll have 3 minutes. You need to state your name and address. This is not a point where we'll be able to answer questions. You can ask questions, we'll write them down and answer them later throughout that. And if there's something for the applicant, they will be able to come back and answer those questions. So again, we try to keep it to the 3 minutes. We will start with anybody online, and so I don't have the list of anybody online.
Currently, nobody on the phone.
Nobody on the phone, so we don't have to worry about that. That's good. So
You do have Chairman Lyons, you have Scott and Connie Harris, and they're online for you. Scott, I think you got your mic turned back on after I muted you, so.
Yeah, sorry, I tuned in late. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. You know, I'm sure these are really nice folks here just trying to do a community service, but frankly, this is a for-profit business and they are trying to override the rural residential estate zoning identified as needed by the comprehensive plan after exhaustive public, political, and professional input. The incompatibility is stark as originally identified, and it's frankly little changed in spite of what Mr. Parker was saying. I'd like to go over a couple of those. Explain the relationship of the proposed use to the comprehensive plan. The developer claimed it, quote, use will be cohesive with the surrounding neighborhood. I want to point out the definition of cohesive, characterized by forming cohesion, which is the action of forming a united whole. This is belied by the many letters and testimony from virtually all neighbors, both adjacent and distant. This is not cohesion. In this case, the opposition is cohesive. They went on to state the proposal would have little impact to traffic within the area. This is ludicrous, folks, and we're looking at potential at commercial use in this area of booming construction. We're looking at commercial use. There's residential use planned and increased commercial availability. I'm not sure what that means. Does that mean there will be shops allowed at some point? Anybody that travels on Elo Road and tries to get onto Highway 55 knows what problems they encounter there. In fact, the bus company rejected the offer to put a bus stop there for the safety reasons associated with trying to get onto and off of Highway 55. Traffic will, during busy times, we have to wait 5 minutes or more to turn right on Highway 55, longer to turn left. Traffic will certainly pick Sampson Trail to get to town, at least during those busy times, adding traffic there. There's no comment about Sampson Trail. The traffic analysis is an in-house perfunctory analysis. And you really need to look at what the real traffic potential is here, particularly with increased commercial use of this facility. They've stated the proposed project is a harmonious fit with the existing neighborhood. I want to point out harmonious is marked by agreement in feeling, forming a pleasing, consistent whole. The whole, in this case, is the existing neighborhood. This is deflected by saying the community need for storage overrides this. Also, the storage use by its very nature is low impact use. Well, what about all the commercial use? What about the planned increased residential use? I guess the
All right, Scott, if you could finish up, that'd be great. That's your 3 minutes.
okay. Well, frankly, I think that one of your major responsibilities is to protect the existing zoning and the residents who have moved into this area, understanding that that zoning would be maintained. I think that that's a priority that should not be sold down the road for a commercial development. I guess that's it. Thank you.
Okay, and Scott, real quick, could I get your address? I just on the,
I'm sorry, it's 86 Ilka Lane, McCall, Idaho. We're about a mile from the facility proposed.
okay, thank you much, Scott. Okay, is there anybody else online that would like to speak regarding this? You may need to hit *6 to unmute yourself, but if there's anybody else online that would like to speak,
That's everybody for you, Chairman Lyons.
okay, great, thank you. All right, we'll go down the list we have here. First couple people look like they may be here for another item, but I'll ask just in case. Kyle Aschelik for the mission one, for the both, yeah, I kind of figured being on mission, so okay, we'll get on that, but just in case. All right, Rick Ryan,
Would you like me to start?
if you can stand at the podium and you can have your name and address.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is Rick Ryan. I live at 1200 South Sampson Trail, which is just south of the proposed development. And I'm speaking again in strong opposition to the store proposal. And really it centers down that the major question to be answered is the one that we're not really talking about, and that is, how can you take a 600 storage unit proposal with its paving and everything, drop it on that corner and say that that does not change the character or is grossly conflicts with the character. And consequently, because in order to approve a CUP, you must meet all 12 criteria. And there are two criteria which I think Brian said it is, you can't square the circle. You can't get there from here. You can't pave that area, which is right now is a forest meadow landscape with small trees, some large trees, and then open space, and put 600 some storage units on there and say that's consistent with the comprehensive plan. And secondly, regarding the September meeting that we had last fall, it was in a driving rainstorm, and we had to hunker under one of the residents' deck in order to continue the meeting because there was such an intense storm. And yet the discussion that we had was that it was largely intense opposition. It wasn't like, how can we fix this? It was that, why are you doing this here? And people thought, well, generally it's a very good project, but it's in the wrong place. And so if you
look at those two criteria, compatibility with the general objectives of the comprehensive plan. It's not. You're paving over an area that the concept in a comprehensive plan is on this 10-acre site, you would have 2 properties with a residence for 5 acres. That is the objective. That's the desired condition there. So another point I'd like to make is that last summer, you all denied application for 46 storage units, toy condos, they were called, on Elo Road, just up the road from this proposal. You rejected it because it was incompatible with the zoning at that time, and you wisely made the right choice. And now we have a much more impactful project. It's like taking Ridley's parking lot and dropping it on the corner and then stacking a bunch of storage units on top of that. How does that square with the rural residence zoning? So that's setting a precedent that's already out there. The 46 storage unit proposal said there are other commercial developments along Sampson Trail, so we're not really doing anything different. They actually said that in their proposal. And so I'm saying that if you take now, reject 46 acres, but say 668 storage units is okay, how many proposals are we going to see in the future? They're going to say, well, you did it over here. And you go down the road, Sampson Trail, there's other commercial operations there. What's the big deal? I can do this now. So that I think is the hook. All right. So follow the comprehensive plan and make the decision to deny the project, because you just can't get there from here with all the mitigations.
All right, thank you. All right, one thing I would like to remind everybody that if you agree with some of the speakers or various speakers' comments, please just state that you agree to that. Maybe not say it again. You have to repeat the same thing over and over. If you agree with previous speakers, just do it that way. Okay, next person is Linda Yude.
My name is Linda Yude, and my address is 1210 South Sampson Trail. And I do agree with the previous 2 speakers, and I continue to be opposed to this project. I think it would have a negative economic impact on our neighborhood, and it would be good somewhere else, but not in our residential area. Thank you.
All right, Rebecca Ryan.
I'm Rebecca Ryan. I live at 1200 South Sampson Trail. I too agree with the prior comments. I want to speak further about the traffic study. I know Scott spoke about it, and I had some different thoughts on reading them in the meeting packet. And of course, this refers to the CUP standard number 4, which is one of the required standards that must be met for this to be approved. I'll just say this, it's about a paragraph. The applicant's traffic study assesses whether an estimated additional 200 plus vehicles per day would affect operations of Highway 55 and Elo Road. It does not address the impact of an additional 200 plus vehicles per day in a zoned rural residential neighborhood. The word safety does not appear in the traffic study. Health and general welfare are not mentioned. The study calls this additional traffic minimal, which might be the case if this commercial development were located in a commercial zone. However, the traffic to and from this complex would not be in a commercial zone. It would be in a residentially zoned rural neighborhood. An estimated increase of more than 200 vehicles per day in a zoned residential neighborhood is not the same as that increase in a commercially zoned location. This zoned residential neighborhood includes school bus routes on the primary approaches to two schools and increasing numbers of cyclists, pedestrians passing through the Elo and South Sampson Trail intersection and to and from the growing residential areas south of Elo and the scenic farm to market corridor. More traffic to a non-conforming commercial business within the scenic zoned for homes drive and ride corridor would put people at risk. Development of the site that conforms to legally established zoning standards, such as several residences, would not. There are about 10 acres for sale diagonally from this proposed site. If this were to go forward, there's no way in the world you guys could stand up to saying no to developing that. It's contrary to the legally established zoning ordinances that we all abide by. And we expect the commission and ask you to continue that respect for the existing zoning ordinances and the comprehensive plans. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we have Ken Stroud. Yep.
I'm Ken Strode, live at 935 South Sampson, and I agree with everybody that's objecting to this, which I fully do. And this harmonious part of it, it's just going to be like the Martins and the McCoys. The neighborhood is not going to like it at all. We object to it, and that's all there is to it. So, thank you.
All right, Jerry Bison.
I'm Jerry Bison. I live at 905 South Sampson. Lived there for 50 some odd years. And I agree with what's been said up to now. And it's just not going to fit in with the neighborhood.
Okay, Jerry. All right, we have Bob Joyce, but I'm pretty sure I saw him leave. I believe that's C.H. Hurlis
CW.
or C.W. C.W. Hurlis.
Chairman Fisher, I've got 73 signatures here in favor from locals. And I've also got an in favor letter from a lady who couldn't make it today.
Okay. And then you'll just leave her,
Yeah. I go back there.
yeah.
All righty. CW Hurlis, I live at 461 North Cove Colony Way in Eagle, Idaho. I'd first like to thank you commissioners for taking the time to hear and review our proposed self-storage expansion located directly next to our current self-storage facility at 379 Elo Road. This property is surrounded on three sides by other forms of commercial use, including the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, Payette Lake Christian Center, Farm to Market Storage, McCall Veterinary, Icola Logging Company, and is very near the McCall Airport. Our hopes for this project are to bring a much needed service to the McCall community and the outlying residents through providing space for a healthier living environment and to bring the fire life safety necessities closer to an area that otherwise doesn't have them readily available. This proposed project is also focused on providing a place for those boats, RVs, campers, additional vehicles, and more to be stored while visitors and residents alike are enjoying all of McCall's wonderful downtown and recreational amenities, which will help to ease the parking and traffic issues. We have been at this approval process for over 4 years now, and I appreciate the patience, help, and guidance that all of you have shown and given over this time. I would like to make note that throughout this process, our managers here in McCall, who also happen to be my mom and dad, have been getting community input of what they would like to see and the needs that are indeed required. All of this was put into the design and unit mix for this expansion. As you have now seen, we feel we have more than helped to create the harmonious nature of the neighborhood with going 4 times the maximum setback requirement from Sampson Trail. We dropped the grapes substantially to avoid any views deterrence as shown on the renderings provided by our architect, Jeff Hatch, and through the on-site neighborhood meeting we held. We have ultimately created a safe haven wildlife corridor away from Highway 55 with this large setback off Sampson Trail. In addition to the existing trees that will remain in this wildlife corridor, an array of native shrubs, rock, and trees will be added here as well as around the rest of the expansion. The existing well that has been on the existing facility since 1991 will be used to avoid any aquifer interference. And we are not impacting the intersection at Elo and Sampson Trail with traffic load as shown through our impact study results. The elimination of an alternate access off Elo Road that was to be closer to this intersection, and the elimination of the storefront retail units that were going to be along Elo Road. In conclusion, I'd like to leave you all with a little history of Stuart and my family. Stuart Self-Storage is locally owned and family operated and has been for over 50 years now. As Idaho natives for multiple generations with roots that stretch from Mount Bora to the East Fork of the Upper Salmon River, to the Stanley Basin, to the Snake River Plain, to right here in the Long Valley, my family prides itself in bringing agreed upon and sought after products and services to the areas that we have and always will call home. Again, thank you for your time and consideration. Your approval of this much needed project would help immensely moving forward.
Thank you. All right, David, so you're gonna speak for that, okay. Same Kurt, anything else on that? Okay. All right, Jim Wilson.
Hi, my name is Jim Wilson. I live at 1190 South Simpson Trail. Thank you, commissioners, for putting up with all of this for so long. It's been a tough one. I agree with the opposition, but you're talking about violating the city and county comprehensive plan. I'm retired, but I spent my work life at a major corporation, and an old, grumpy, but pretty wise boss once told me, follow the plan in place. If you don't follow the plan in place, you're going to need to have meetings and discussions, et cetera, to put a new plan in place. And that's for a corporation. For a government entity, you got wider implications. You got precedent set. It gets more difficult to resist other deviations. And you got possible legal implications if you don't follow the plan in place. So my advice is follow the plan. Thanks.
All right, Hamish Bell.
Hamish Bell. I live at 170 Shadows Trail in Donnelly. I'm in favor of the project. I think there's cohesiveness with the existing facility and creates a good buffer from the busy main road. Thanks.
All right, Larry Shake.
My name is Larry Shake. I live at 1612 South Simpson Trail. And I'm a little bit confused because in the last meeting in June, some of you that were sitting around this table were looking at each other going, how can we approve this? We don't see any way that it can be made or changed in any way to change the impacts that it has, especially from the standpoint, I don't know this for sure. Maybe Mr. Parker can tell me, but it's my understanding that a non-conforming use in a given zone cannot be expanded. The reason that storage unit is there is because it was built before the comprehensive plan. But the comprehensive plan states that it's supposed to be 1 house per 5 acres. And to expand a non-conforming use in that zone is illegal. So I don't know why we're going through this. We go through these meetings time and time again when we could just turn around and say, this project doesn't fit here. They just got approved for a new one in Donley. And it's going to relieve a lot of the stress and strain that we have here now, as far as storage units are concerned. But this use in this location does not meet the code. And that's what we have to live up to, is the code. We're gonna throw the code out, and I'm sure you all read my letters to the editor. If we throw the code out, we might as well not do anything anywhere. You guys can just approve anything. Just go with the plan. This thing doesn't fit here, and we can dream up ways to prove it all over the place. But I hope you deny it.
Okay, Jeff Hatch. Oh, you're already there. So yeah, that. Liz and Carrie Rukla? Liz and Carrie Rukla? Yeah.
That and Carl, each commissioner does have a copy of, I think, Liz's letter that was dropped off. I don't know if it's different, but if you'd like it to be read into the record, I know that it was after 3 p.m., so we can do that.
Yeah, you can if you would, please. I'm Carl Rucklot. I live at 550 Elo Road. And I agree with the people that are in opposition, especially what Larry Shake just said about, we have these rules, we should follow the rules. But I also have some other things to say about it. What about the crime? Nobody's brought up about crime that comes associated with storage sheds and that many additional people. And the noise. I think there's going to be a significant amount of noise. And I think that your studies on the traffic on the corner of Elo and Sampson are not up to the amount of traffic that we have there. Also, the architect's rendition of the project looks nice from where they show it from the front side. But from our side, all we're going to see is 10 roofs. We aren't going to see any of the architecture. We're just going to see 10 roofs. It's going to look terrible. Also, our property values are going to decrease. I don't feel like I should be paying for the architect or the developers to make a profit on my back. I just don't think it's fair. Thank you.
Were you gonna read the letter or do you?
I'll read that one and the other one that was handed in
After.
once everybody else.
Okay, yeah, okay, Joey Petrie?
Joey Cooper, 225 Valley Springs Road. First off, I'd like to say I'm supportive of the residents here. I'd also like to say Dwayne Smith got those things in there way early before planning and zoning started. I think that's common knowledge. He was lucky that he did that, that he was able to do that. As far as low impact, there are low impact areas. I don't think there's anything low impact about things that are being stored in the one. Those things are going to come out of that place, going to impact the lake, they're going to impact the roads, they're going to impact the backcountry as well. So I think that needs to be taken into consideration when you think of the place as a whole. I do not think they're compatible. You could look at Jackson Hole, all of these places that have these mega storage units up and down their corridors, and it's not very, it's not very inviting. And I think it detracts from the ambiance of the town, and we're losing that. And so, I think I could back off there. And another thing, I didn't know churches were a commercial thing. I thought a church was a place of worship. So you're pulling from nowhere, I think. You're trying to throw stuff in there that's not really so. And I'd appreciate you wouldn't do that, because you are a capitalist venture. You are a venture that makes a lot of money, and you don't need to make your money off of these residents' backs or our community's environment that we so treasure. So please take it to a proper location. Thank you.
All right, David Gallipoli.
Thank you. I agree with all the comments that have been said, and so I'll keep my statement
Dave, could you
brief.
please say your name, address?
Gallipoli, 200 Scott Street, McCall. Neighbors oppose this application, and it's not appropriate for our comprehensive plan to approve an expansion of this facility when the original approval for this facility was questionable. We can no longer look at an application without considering its long-term impact on the community. All the issues in McCall and Valley County are connected and will impact everyone who lives here, those who visit, and our land, water, and wildlife. Something that hasn't been discussed here are individual property and community rights. We often ignore those in the approval process. Neighbors speaking out must be heard. The developer has property rights, but not at the cost and negative impacts to the adjacent landowners. Balance must be at the heart of all zoning decisions, and approval will only create imbalance for the neighborhood. Considering the applications in isolation will only compound our issues of safety, health, and the welfare of our community and visitors. Our issues of traffic, EMS, housing, hospitals, schools, infrastructure are all connected, and each approval application will only worsen our present problems and create crisis after crisis in our future. It is time to think of growth's long-term cumulative impacts and protect the property and community rights of those who live here and not add to the problems we have yet to solve. The application is not a good fit for the neighborhood and will only add to existing issues. Please deny this application. And one other thing about wildlife. I've talked to many wildlife biologists. The science and wildlife biologists are very clear. Any human presence usually disrupts wildlife corridors that have been here for 200 to 1,000 years and their habitat. So unless there was a very detailed study about the wildlife corridor here, it's not going to fit with the wild that lives here. The science is really clear on that. Thank you.
All right, is there anybody else here in the audience that would like to speak? Hasn't spoke already? Anybody else that's online? I don't think we have anybody else new, but just in case.
Nobody knew.
Nobody new? All right. Brian, do you want to read a couple of new letters that we received?
Start with Claire Dreyer, 334 Rio Vista Boulevard, McCall, Idaho. In favor, this is a time in our county and state history when we are growing internally regardless of the influx of people, but especially with the influx. This is a crossroads moment where we can be caught behind in our planning and become burned by stagnant mindset and aging infrastructure, or we can be ahead, allow existing businesses within the community to continue providing needed physical services as they have meant to do so, serving the population in real time. The door has been left open on this matter for so long as I think it is obvious that our public interest and acceptable tolerance for growth is changing. For example, the renewed popular interest for development next to the yacht club. People are thrilled to have a new food truck option in place of an empty, barren, unkempt lot. Zoning and traffic impact are rarely static. In fact, a dynamic population is the only way in town with little self-driven industry is able to thrive. Tax dollars generated by business expansion is one of the few ways we are able to minimally maintain an infrastructure at all without reliance on state and federal funding that has proven not always real-time. The actual impact study showing an average of 12 vehicles a day will be a blip on the radar of the already busy Sampson and Elo roads. To not want any change in one's backyard is a challenging yet inevitable result of not being able to landowner of everything around you. In reading, the Idaho property owners' rights were not meant to hold landowners hostage by their neighbors' resistance, yet encourage highest and best use within their rights and interests of the community. In this community, I know of no business owner whose intent is to degrade their property rather than promote every improvement within their means. Stuart has proven to operate a needed service to the utmost standards for over 50 years, and we can assume they will continue to improve on this reputation in the future. And as stated earlier, this is a list of signatures of several pages. If you cannot attend and are in support of this expansion, please place your name, physical address, signature, and date. Your support is greatly appreciated. So, presumably in support. Then, we'll go with Carl Mazruka, 550 Elo Road, Collido. We are writing again to state our strong opposition to Stuart's proposal for a CUP to construct storage units in our residential estate zone. We live at 550 Elo Road and have since 1989. This proposed project does not fit in with the current residential neighborhood and would completely change its character. Our property values will drop a bunch. Who wants to live next to or across from a storage unit? The proposed units are across from the Church of Latter-day Saints. This proposal for storage units is wrong. Also, traffic is a big problem now, and the addition of 668 storage units will only add to this. What about the scenic byway? Coming into McCall, this is what the city wants, storage units that stretch off into the distance. Won't that look nice on a postcard of tourist pictures? What about additional crime? Has the city thought about this problem? Proposed project violates several of the 12 required conditions for approval of the CUP. It would violate criteria number 2, be harmonious with and in accord with the general objectives of any specific objective of the comprehensive plan and or this title. The project is so far from harmonious, it's ridiculous. It would violate criteria number 3, designed, constructed, operated and maintained to be harmonious and appropriate in the appearance within the existing or likely character of the neighborhood, and that such use will not change the essential character of the surrounding area. This project destroys the open meadow aspects of the existing landscape, placing most of it with acres of storage units. It would be in conflict with criteria number 4, not be detrimental to the health, safety, and general welfare of persons residing or working in the neighborhood of such proposed use. The traffic issues at and around the Elo Road South Sampson Trail intersection are well known and documented and will only get worse if the project should be approved. The proposed storage project does not maintain the consistency of our city comprehensive plan. The project does not belong in our residential neighborhood. It will ruin our property values. We will not be as safe. Traffic will be terrible. We hate it. Thank you. Carl and Liz Rucola. P.S. At the neighborhood meeting, end of September, no one was in favor of the project.
Was there one more? Did that get out to everybody in time? We had one more. Was that one sent out?
That is from the.
Yeah, Brian, can you read that one? I think it's
Yeah.
from after I updated the packet.
Gotcha.
Thank you.
All right. This is from Therese Gibbony. No address provided. Okay. Hello, unfortunately, we cannot make it tonight. However, we are hopeful you will share our email as testimony. We are part of a Facebook group called Stop Roseberry Park. Therefore, we are very familiar with Jeff Hatch and his storage units. We are currently fighting his 99,000 square foot proposed new storage unit here in Donnelly called Shoemaker Donnelly Storage. From what we have garnered, Mr. Hatch also recently purchased and owns another storage unit on Highway 55 in Donnelly called Storage. We are writing to ask you that you deny this application. The Elo store is already too large. Mr. Hatch obviously has plenty of storage units he already owns and is proposing in Donnelly. We certainly don't want both Donnelly and McCall to become dumping grounds for too many storage units. Enough is enough. With our economy going into a semi-recession, it is time to slow down and think of what we are leaving for future generations. Once again, please deny this application tonight. I think that's all.
I think that's all here in the file. All right, with that, I believe we've heard from everybody here and online. So I will close the public hearing. And commissioners. But yeah, you have a rebuttal if you want to. Yeah, it's good. About that. Yeah, if you want to, anything you want to answer, or reply back to that.
Yeah, I didn't know if you had to reopen the public hearing.
Yeah, we have a real. About you.
Here's my- Yeah. No. Commissioners, thank you for your consideration of our application. We've heard a range of considerations and concerns tonight. This is a list of the summary and justifications of what you see as the criteria of the proposed project. This criteria is the same criteria that is seen in Valley County. And although I don't own this facility nor that one in Donley, this is the same criteria that had to be achieved in order to get approval of that facility in Donley. In that particular case, they have a hotel to the north, but otherwise it is a rural area up against the highway. In this particular case, 75% of the property from the west to the north and south are currently being used in commercial states. Really, only the easterly property is adjacent to residential uses. So with that, the consideration for, are we allowed to put self-storage in this? That would be criteria number one. Yes, for the table, the McCall, you're certainly allowed through this conditional use process to propose and grant self-storage in conditional use cases. So as far as a ability to do so, we feel that it's written into the code, so it's pretty cut and dry as far as an allowed use. As far as criteria two, I think that was the one that most people.
Can I interrupt for just a second? Where is that?
This is his PowerPoint presentation.
It'll be McCall City Code Table 3.3.02.
Okay.
Don't want to pull that up, but it just indicates that it's an approved use based on a conditional use approval.
Okay.
In that zone. So with that said, we have criteria point number two, be harmonious in accord with the general objectives and overall objectives of the comprehensive plan. If we go back to slide, sorry. 3 slides, there we go. So as previously stated, the objectives that we feel are achieved by the comprehensive plan are encouraging affordable housing. You do that by providing a place for individuals who now live in a more affordable, more compact dwelling to be able to store things offsite at the facility. Creating an urban growth boundary that surrounds McCall and preserving open areas versus having some storage here and some storage somewhere else and some storage in different locations around the city. Being able to preserve and isolate those to one area opens up other portions of land for different uses. Support a connected open space network and wildlife corridor, which we feel based on the current use, that wildlife corridor that we're proposing and making that a platted feature of that land is something that can preserve that as wildlife corridor in perpetuity.
Can I interrupt you for a second?
Yes.
The screens aren't synced to what you think they are. You wanted to show your slides, yeah?
Meredith seems to have taken over the screen.
I mean, that's all right. You're showing the table of allowed uses, so I think that's important to note too, but yeah.
Oh.
Sorry, Jeff's slides weren't coming up for the virtual version. Okay, I'm done. I'm not going to take over again.
Plans for economic diversity is a little bit more vague, but I feel that, to put a couple houses on this property doesn't really encourage or support economic diversity or local jobs. Being able to expand this need, which is a need in McCall and has been expressed by several of the commissioners over the past years as a need that we're working on trying to address with this project. We feel that it provides a range of jobs, a range of opportunities to use this facility. And with that, locating industry, warehouse, logistics, and manufacturing proximity to transportation, the majority of the current master plan for McCall has all of the commercial uses along the highway. And as McCall expands, it will continue to maintain that on the highway. It will do that because it's not desirable to have residential uses up against a highway because you have constant traffic, constant semi trucks, people braking, and it's an unpleasant use for residential space, as well as its adjacency to the airport. If we go back to our CUP criteria on page 20. So we have logging, we have self-storage next to the church, as well as the existing self-storage, veterinary clinic, and residential. I understand that there are concerns with the residential aspect of that, but the other 75% of the land around this we're fairly compatible with. And as far as harmonious, I feel that this proposed location and site being so close to the highway is more harmonious and does create a substantial buffer, both from that wildlife corridor standpoint, landscape standpoint, and also all the provisions that have been provided to lower and minimize view corridors for the general public on Sampson Trail and create a buffer from that highway to the residents. Again, this is the exact same 12 criteria that Valley County had to review last month and come to a conclusion on a very similar project. As far as category number 3, to be designed and operated and maintained in a harmonious and appropriate appearance with the existing and likely character of the neighborhood. Well, again, we have a church and we have a self-storage facility and we have another self-storage facility to the north of us, a logging company. We feel that not only does this proposed development meet the criteria of the neighborhood of those spaces, but it also is a nice product that brings attractive appearance to these commercial spaces. And then the sensitivity to preserve the views of the neighbors along Sampson Trail. The 120-foot easement is something that is very well evaluated. We had surveyors go out and stake that to see where the buildings would be along Sampson Trail. We physically went out and looked at those locations to ensure that those would be able to not be seen. Then we had our landscape architect adjust those views of the plantings, the tree placement, the locations of things based on that survey in order to ensure with confidence that you would not see the facility from Sampson Trail. That is the intent. Not be detrimental to the health, safety, and general welfare of the neighborhood. I think the biggest overarching concern with this, especially from our early neighborhood meeting and this current neighborhood meeting, was concerns for water quality and being able to go back, work with the existing conditions of the well and be able to achieve confidence that we can propose this project without modifications to where we're pulling from the aquifer, I think was a fairly substantial achievement. Also, the adjustments and modifications to our leach field are well to the west of any impact to our neighbors. Item number 5, not cause a substantial harmful environment consequence of any land or water within the planning jurisdiction. We feel that the project will improve on-site stormwater management as well as stormwater management off the roadway, and will improve the considerations of the land and water with that dedicated wildlife corridor, and also maintaining all of our stormwater away from the residents. Criteria number 6, not create excessive additional public cost for public facilities and services and will not be detrimental to the economic welfare of the community. We're proposing over 2,000 lineal feet of pedestrian pathway for this project and a fully constructed fire station in order to help justify the conditional use aspect of the proposed facility, which we feel is fairly substantial, above and beyond what that criteria is asking for. Item number 7, be served adequately by essential public facilities and services, including highway, streets, police protection, drainage, structures, refuse. Our essential public facilities, such as highway and drainage, serve the project and there's no additional burden on those facilities. From both our traffic engineers' comments and also the comments from Morgan, this proposed project has very low impact to roadways. We've eliminated any access that could have been achieved off of Sampson Trail, as well as any access even close to Sampson Trail. And as a condition of approval, if the commission deems it appropriate, we can certainly follow up with our traffic engineer, provide a full traffic impact study prior to building permit. Not involve uses, activities, process, materials, equipment, or conditions of operation that are unreasonable for production of traffic noise, fumes. Most project will be used for self-storage, which is traditionally low impact use. No proposed conditions will cause any unreasonable increase in traffic. All of the noise, fumes, glare, and odors will all be internal to the site. All of our drive lanes are low enough that we would not be providing even glare from headlights. We feel that impact, there is a substantial less chance of any contamination of any water runoff because of its isolated location and
We
relationship.
still can't hear you back here.
Item number 9, have vehicular approaches to the property so designed as not to create a detrimental interference with traffic on the surrounding roads. We're proposing 2 existing accesses, which we will be then improving based on recommendations from the traffic report. We're not adding any additional access points. Item number 10, not result in destruction, loss, or damage of important natural, scenic, or historic features. Currently, the scenic byway in this area is just native meadow grass. What we're proposing is to enhance that scenic byway with the standards that the city of McCall expects from the scenic byway, with landscaping and berming along the freeway, which creates a buffer to all the residents and uses to the east. Be on site, a site of sufficient size to accommodate the proposed use, including the yards, open space, no storage, parking. And again, through our site plan view of our grading and drainage plans, we feel that we've provided that information adequately. And lastly, have a minimum negative economic impact on neighborhood and surrounding community. For several projects, because this always comes up with every single project we do, we've had to evaluate from Miami to Georgia to Connecticut to Texas to Idaho, portions of Idaho, as far as how self-storage affects property value, both from an adjacent standpoint and an impact on the community. What we found is that if you build a poorly designed, inexpensive facility, it will detract property value. To combat that, we found that if you build a high quality, architecturally attractive facility that is compatible with the neighborhood, it either has no impact on the property value or it actually enhances the property value. You can look at some of our projects on our website. Premier Storage is right next to 2 subdivisions. Storage has a great case study on Apple Street, Boise, that also has no change in property value. So that's a case study that we can provide, but we feel with confidence that we're providing a need to the city of McCall we feel that this location, especially because it already has storage, and it has storage to the north of it, would be an appropriate location for this use. And with that, I'll stand for any additional questions.
Commissioners, any questions for Scott? Think we have anything at this point.
Okay.
Right,
Very
thank
much
you.
for your time.
Okay, now we'll close the public hearing again. And commissioners' discussions, or any questions, anything for staff, and just discussions in general. Looks like you got a list.
Well, most of these we went through during the staff. report. That's what I had written down. So, and some of these are just my notes as we were going through. Um, I'm just taking a minute to process.
Okay. One thing, like in the previous applications, or, there was quite a few things that I know we felt that really didn't fit within all the criteria of the conditional use permit. They have done some changes to the previous plans, but some of our questions that we need to answer, is that enough? There has been some items, but is there enough for us to feel it satisfies those requirements? That's going to go back to those same CUP requirements and how we feel if that's addressed. So, Liz or Tom, do you have any thoughts there online?
Yeah,
My thoughts.
Go ahead, Tom.
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead, Liz, please.
Oh, okay. So looking at this, first I want to say thanks to the Storit team for really reworking the application and incorporating a lot of the comments that we had said previously. I can tell that they put a lot of time and effort into that approach, and I appreciate them taking the time to meet with the community. That said, I think we have to look at this from the conditional use permit perspective. And, if they do meet all of the criteria for the conditional use permit, then we approve. And if they fail to meet some of that criteria, then we have to deny. And I think that's where we're coming from. And so looking at it from that framework, I kind of highlighted a couple of notes throughout all of the new proposal, the community feedback and whatnot. So the traffic consideration, I think of as, I understand traffic studies as they might apply to a store in Boise, but what we're talking about is the traffic impact to a rural estate area. So looking at the traffic study, there's 2 points in that study that say either it's an increase of 129 daily visits or 260 daily trips or less. Either way, that seems like a lot of traffic for a rural estate area. I mean, I just know on my street, if I saw an additional 290 or 160 cars driving by every day, that's a lot of additional traffic considering that zone. So that's like hitting on CUP condition number 8, the unreasonable production of traffic. Going into a lot of what the community was talking about, number 2 and number 3, harmonious and in accord with the general objectives. Number 3, appropriate in appearance with the current or likely character. I don't think it's valid to compare other non-conforming uses such as the church or the McCall's, animal shelter as reasons that we should approve this because there's other non-conforming uses. I think we need to focus on what the comprehensive plan states and what our zoning states, which is, is a storage facility appropriate in an appearance for a rural estate area? I have a really hard time with that one. Again, I do appreciate all of the screening with trees and other landscape buffers and whatnot that have gone into that plan. And I think we can hide a lot of that appearance, but is that really what we want to do? We're not talking about putting like 1 or 2 big house looking type structures that this company is going to try to use in this area, we're talking about building a whole bunch of buildings in this rural estate area. So that's where some of my concerns come from. Other concerns are, you know, the health and safety, water runoffs. I don't know enough about how that works, but it is a concern area for me. Traffic safety, I've already hit on. And then economic welfare and, you know, property value impacts. Like I just don't know enough to say, but like as a person who owns property, like I don't want a storage unit next to my property because I think that's going to decrease my property value. So I really need to see evidence to counter that viewpoint from my perspective. That's what I got.
Great, thanks. Tom, you had something?
Well, yeah, I think Liz said it well. I mean, the thing that I have a hard time getting over, and I just happen to live about a half mile from this site, and the thing that I have a hard time getting over is it being a harmonious use. You know, if it's a residential house that's on there, I mean, really, in 8 acres, you probably would only have two homes, and you're talking many buildings. The other thing is that I hear is that, well, we have storage to the north, we have our existing storage. I just think that just adds fodder to the conversation down the road, that potentially the 10 acres on the corner that's for sale, and you know, this quickly becomes a storage park with multiple owners, and that's my concern, is that 10 years down the road or whatever, it becomes further evidence that this needs to continue with storage development in the area, which is against the comprehensive plan, which is at some point we have to draw the line of what's an acceptable use in the area. And unfortunately, it's abrupt because of the existing storage units that are there and the current zoning that we have. So to me, I see that rub there. I understand the need for storage, and really, again, I've said it before, they've done a really excellent job of running traps on, you know, setting it back from the road, and you know, in terms of the existing storage units that are there, including the one that's owned, what's proposed is a marked improvement from those. But the simple fact is we're butting up against this residential zone, and where do we draw that line? So that's all I have to say.
Yeah, thank you, Tom. Ryan, Liz, Tony.
Right, Christina. I'll be go next. Go ahead.
Is that-
All right, go ahead.
I'm sorry, Christina.
Oh, I didn't even notice. So for me, a couple of the comments that were made were during some of the presentations talked about, you know, well, there's going to be commercial development along Highway 55. This is already happening. You can see it happening here and here. And that may be, it may be that when we when we update the comprehensive plan the next time around, maybe those planning processes show that there's commercial zones are now going to be coming down into this area. And now we are anticipating these things, but right now the planning documents that we have to go through, yes, they do show commercial zones along 55, but not all the way down to Elo. Right now, what we have shows residential, even along 55 down to Elo. And I kind of went through when I was looking through the packet, trying to make sure that I was looking at all of the different parts and pieces. And we had the future land use map. We know we have the existing zoning, obviously. the future land use map does show large residential, even along 55 on both sides of the road, with a medium, I think it was medium density residential to the north. And then the other one that I looked at that I actually found kind of interesting was the overlay map. And all of this is shown it's shown as the Highway South proposed overlay. And so then I kind of started reading like, okay, well, what does that mean? What does this definition? And it calls for higher degrees of open space, clustering of buildings, panoramic views, openness, and distinct separation of urban and residential, or urban and rural areas. And I think that for me is going to be the crux of it. That the documents that we have currently, in my mind, don't support a use of this type and density. And again, maybe those will change. I do understand that zoning is, it changes in time. But what we have to work with right now is this. So.
I guess my statement is that, I agree with the other commissioners. One of the testimonials we heard was that it's our role to protect the current zoning laws, as Commissioner Nemec was just stating. The way it's currently written is it's rural residential. However, the conditional use is allowed in the rural residential, but when I view that and when I think about that, I would like to see projects come forward that are asking for a conditional use to try to still adhere as much as possible to the current zoning law. And I don't see this project actually doing that. I think there was a lot of concessions made from the first time we saw it, which is commendable. But it's still a storage unit. It's still taking up a large amount of the lot coverage that is just way past what the rural residential allows. So that's a sticky point for me. And then the harmonious nature with the neighborhood. I mean, clearly with the amount of testimonials that we've seen or heard today, it's not in line with what people want. So I have a hard time getting past that.
Tony?
Well, here we are again. This is the fourth time,
Something like that?
I have trouble with a couple of things that, and I agree with what was said earlier about you guys put on a heck of a presentation. I mean, it's been very thorough. You went back and made changes that, we wanted to see happen, and you came to the party in a big way. But when I look at there's two storage units that I thought two storage units were being, one was going to be constructed in Donnelly, and then there was another one on the books for somewhere in that local area. And I didn't realize that these people were a part of that operation. So that in itself, we're taking kind of a quantum leap. We had basically not enough storage area for everything that people needed up here. You had to go to Riggins to get a storage unit, and now we're looking at possibly three of them coming into existence if this was approved within the next 3 to 5 years. I think we got a little bit, we're going to be in a position possibly that we're going to have too much storage unit, and it's going to be in places that we really said, we're going to look back at ourselves and say, I don't think we should have done it that way. But that is the way it comes together in this situation. And the traffic study, I look at the traffic study that we saw with a Maverick store that came to town and tried to come to town with a different proposal and didn't make it. But that traffic study was very thorough. It was almost so complicated I couldn't even read it. And looking at the numbers, looking at the flows, and the way the things came together. And this traffic study is kind of an enlarged home study, I would say, from the people at Stormore, and have it get validated by someone in that traffic study business. I don't think it's enough for me in good conscience to vote on that and to say this amount of units is going to be low impact, and that low impact statement has been made throughout this about what traffic studies in the rest of the world are like. And yeah, that's the rest of the world, but we're talking our community here, which we're responsible as commissioners to be able to defend and to be able to say, this is what we think is in the best interest of the people in this room and the people that are trying to keep McCall in the nice serene area, or it's, you know, it's just a little bit too much for me. And the last thing that I think that it kind of really got me is the fire station and is that an afterthought, or is that just something that they wanted to do for us as far as making it a little bit more palatable for the Planning and Zoning Commission to possibly push this through? And is that really necessary in the whole scheme of things? I don't think it is. I think we got an adequate fire station. We got an adequate fire department. I think we got a very good fire department. My wife used to work there. She told me great things about it. And I think that was kind of something that was slipped in to kind of make things a little bit more, I guess, acceptable to us as planning and zoning commissioners. So that given all I've said, and hope I didn't duplicate myself in a couple of places, that's my take on the whole thing. It's just not something that I in good conscience could vote for, given what has been proposed at this point in time. So like that.
Now, Commissioners, very good thoughts. And I agree. I think you all have made very clear, concise, accurate points on this. Something to kind of consider as well. Not that we have to consider it, but a lot of it has been discussed that, you know, because it within the zone allows for a conditional use permit application, it does not mean that that item is automatically approved for that area. It just allows for it to be conditional use applied for. So, and it has to fit the criteria as we've been discussing. And another thing, if the older units were there which are non-conforming, we wouldn't even really be having this discussion, because it would be absolutely does not fit. The reason it's halfway there, because there is some existing non-conforming structures that were there from many years ago. So I think it's pretty clear based on commissioners' inputs that there's not, or I should say there is a consensus of not approving. Now, I know in the past we've talked about if there's a way we can come back to the applicant and suggest changes to make it fit. Based on, I think, the commissioners' discussions and comments, I don't know if that's anything we could even do.
Yeah, Chairman, my 2 cents on that is I don't see a way that we can construct multiple structures on this acreage and comply with the rural estate zoning.
Yeah.
Bill, can you help provide a clear and concise explanation of where we're at?
Yeah, so I think there's been a lot of good discussion. My recommendation would be to continue the issue to the next meeting, allow staff some time to develop some findings and conclusions on the application, and consistent with the comments that have been made by the commissioners and the record that's been presented. And then the board can vote on that at the next meeting.
So that would be findings and conclusions denying the application?
Consistent with denial.
Consistent with denial. Yeah. All right. If anybody would like to make the motion, and so is there any other discussion or any other thoughts from the commissioners? Or I'd be open to a motion.
Is that a motion to table?
No, it'd be to continue to allow staff to prepare findings and conclusions with the recommendation.
I would recommending.
Yeah.
One of you guys making a motion to direct staff to prepare findings of conclusion recommending denial for a substance application based on the commission deliberation already discussed. Continue public hearing to the February 7th meeting.
Do we have to continue the public hearing?
Yes.
We do. Okay.
Bill?
Well, I mean,
I don't know if we would.
I
We
mean,
already
but the
closed.
public hearing has occurred. So, I mean, and we closed the hearing, is that right, Brian? Unless I missed it.
I don't think, yeah. I don't
Yeah,
think
so I
we've-
mean, we've taken our evidence, and so I don't see a reason to continue the public hearing. And now it would just be voting on findings and conclusions, because we're not going to take any more evidence.
But when is the next meeting?
February 7th.
All right, here we go.
Motion.
And can I confirm that your specific conditions on the CUP criteria of approval, I have down condition number 2 seems to be a pretty big hurdle. Condition number 3 seems to be a big hurdle. Condition number 8 seems to be a big hurdle, and condition number 12.
I would concur with that. We could also add a condition number 4, which involving the health and safety elements.
And that was related to concerns on stormwater and drainage and traffic.
Correct.
Okay.
Does that include all the ones that are conditions of approval are here right now?
She's
Oh, it's
just
a denial
talking
for
the CUP.
criteria of approval for issuing a conditional use permit.
Okay.
Any others?
I think so.
Yeah, I think that covers it.
That covers everybody's concerns.
All right, let's see how I can make this. I move to direct staff to develop findings and conclusions consistent with denial for the February 7th meeting.
And continue the meeting till,
Continue the meeting till the February 7th.
continue the application.
Continue the application till the February 7th meeting.
For all of these.
For
See how tough it is?
PUD 2204, CUP 2204, DR 2206, and SR 2204. Thank you.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Well, all of them together. They all go together.
Yeah.
Okay.
We have a motion.
Oh, I'll second that.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? None, the motion is carried. And we continue to the next meeting with instructions to staff. All right.
Robert, can you allow a little bit of time to let everybody exit so that I can
Yep.
hear properly? Thank you.
I was just gonna say that. We'll take a 5 minute break. If anybody wants to refresh themselves.
Brian? Yeah, this is Michael and Laurel McKinnon. I just, would we be next on the agenda? Just curious.
Were you the pre-plan session?
Yeah.
Pre-application?
We
Yeah,
were
I'll
on
bring
the
you back
phone, we
in.
were on the phone line. We weren't on the Zoom, so we were waiting there on the phone line, so. Unfortunately, but we've learned a lot about the zoning, so that's been educational.
Sorry we missed you. We didn't see you on the phone, so.
Okay.
But yeah, we'll give it just a minute. We'll jump back to you.
Okay, thank you
so much. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
So that basically means there's no more public comment and no more input from the people.
And so the Planning and Zoning Commission is
Okay, we're back from the break and we have Michael and Lauren McKinnon here that we missed earlier for the pre-app. So if you would like to present your pre-application, is it Michael or Lauren gonna do for both of you, I guess, looks like?
Yeah, well, we're both here. We're happy to answer any questions, but yes, Michael and Laurel McKinnon at 301 Rio Vista Boulevard.
Okay. I know this is fairly new as far as requirements from the city,
Yep.
as far as doing a conditional use permit for short-term rental. So who gets to be our first guinea pig? Might say.
Uh-oh.
We don't.
Is that good or bad? I don't know.
Probably good,
There we
hopefully
are.
for you. So I guess I'll just let you start the presentation.
Oh, well,
I'm happy to discuss.
go ahead,
it.
Henry.
Yeah, and obviously, our first time as well. We have been, just by way of background, we have been, we've owned the home for two plus years now. Laurel grew up in Idaho. Our kids are part of the McCall Winter Sports Club race team, and we basically spend winters there. And we had several years before purchasing the home. But we're winter residents, I guess would be the way to put that. So we do use the home as a short-term rental because a long-term rental isn't feasible from the perspective of we're there for a chunk of the year. And so we have gone down a short-term rental path, have done so since owning the property. And have not had any issues in renting the property. It was managed by, well, it still is managed by Vacasa Vacation Rentals in McCall, and following certainly all the rules and requirements established prior to this conditional use permit. But it is a 5-bedroom home and therefore does allow for greater than 11 occupants as part of the short-term.
But only 12.
Only 12, yes, we're not bigger than, so more than 11, but less than 13. So there we are. And so we do allow for that in the home and do have ample parking to be able to support that, as you can see from the drawing here. But happy to answer any questions or if there's anything we're missing in terms of what you're looking for from our application. We are also hosting a open meeting on next Thursday. For neighbors, we sent out, I believe, around 30 letters to those residents who would, according to public deed records, were within 300 feet of our property, including quite a few McCall city facilities as well, and invited them to come to our home to answer any questions that they may have regarding the conditional use permit, and that'll happen next Thursday.
That was good.
All right. Yeah, since this is a little different on really what we're needing for your approvals, Brian.
Yes.
I mean, there's a lot of these that we're gonna get, a lot of the items on the conditional use permit are really.
Yeah, it's gonna be a little interesting.
I don't know if we need to create another.
Existing structures and like, there's really not gonna be a lot of, site design elements and things like
Yeah.
that. that do
It would be helpful to have a, yeah.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. We were getting there.
Approval thing, is that what you're talking about, or?
So it's the same 12 standards.
Okay, and those all apply, okay, yeah, I see, okay. Got it.
Regular CUP approval requirement.
Right.
And so that was why we supplied,
Does also apply.
So can we review our new, like the main points of where we ended up after city council? This is our new short-term rental.
Yes, it's part of a new short-term rental ordinance.
Do you mind, or at some point, maybe before we hear the official application, can we go through and review what the changes were? So we're very familiar with where the whole zone ordinance ended.
I mean, in general, with this application, I mean, everything seems to fit. I mean, I don't know of anything that would, within the 12 guidelines.
Do you guys have copies or did you? So all those same CUP approvals that you kind of just had to sit through, all those same 12 criteria, those would be the same criteria that we would have to use to evaluate your application for a short-term rental as well. So the things you were hearing about being harmonial.
Yeah.
all of those same ones we would be evaluating the application based on those same criteria.
Okay. I mean, I don't think we specifically addressed them. I didn't think we were informed that we had to specifically address the CUP guidelines and those particular 12 components. I know, having spent the last 2 hours listening to the other organization go through that, we aren't changing anything to the current residential use of our home, right? Other than we are having guests arrive, just like we would if we had, our family and friends, which we have throughout winter, or whenever we're at the property, come and stay with us. So there are many times where we'll have, more than 12 people visiting us when we're at our home. We don't make any changes to the, front, to the access, to any of our neighbors' properties with regards to it. And so it's a property that remains as it has since it was built in the neighborhood, in the Rio Vista neighborhood.
Okay, so when you submit your actual application, because you'll come back before when you submit your actual application, those would be good points to speak to.
Yep.
Are those?
Happy to answer all 12 of those. I don't think many of them apply to this, but we will certainly give you what you need to be able to approve.
Sounds good.
Yeah, I don't see any other questions, but yeah, as far as you, but I think Brian, with the application that all homeowners are going to be, or not all, but homeowners that are going to come with the CUP through us, it would be good to have an outline for them to show these are the.
We're working on internal, like, before they even do the pre-app, like, here's what you need to know and who you need to talk to. Because it is different than a typical pre-application where we'll have them go talk to Morgan and the sewer district.
Yeah.
Like infrastructure.
That'd be like a condensed version CUP for this. Otherwise, it's just going to be way more stuff and a lot of time that's not needed.
Typically be the neighborhood meeting that is going to illuminate all of the complaints that they may have had in the past over noise and garbage and.
Yep.
And Chairman, I do have templates built for all of those, and I'm gonna provide those to the McKinnons after this meeting and get them prepped like everyone else. And then the other part, depending on the volume of these that we begin to see, I think you started to ask about whether we need to ponder like an additional backup meeting date or something. But that might be worth considering, just looking at, in case we end up having 3 or 4 of these a month or something like that. So far, we only have this pre-application and 2 others at this point. So I don't know where that'll shake out as the year goes on. That's more of a TBD type question.
Well, I believe there's approximately, 125 of them that currently fall under that number based on some of the.
We're at 125 that were advertising 12 or 10 or more based on the 4-person per bedroom occupancy. Dropping it down to 2 persons per bedroom and basing it off the number of bedrooms, there were roughly 35, I believe, 5.
Okay, so we may not be inundated based on that potentially.
I've reviewed 4 or 5 that we have not seen a pre-application in yet. That
okay, so we may not totally over them. So, well, back to this application, Michael and Lauren. I really think, there's really not a whole lot there other than, like, say, get the information from staff and just kind of be prepared for those 12 items, because that's usually the key points of a conditional use permit approval.
Sure. And we will make sure to obviously bring any questions brought up by neighbors that do attend next week at our meeting. Obviously our goal here is to be, stay in compliance. That's why, do we get a medal if we're first? Is there some like special thing? Can we get like, I don't know, some sort of certificate? But hopefully we can learn and come up with making the process easier and in compliance with the city ordinances.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you
so much.
Have a great rest of your evening.
Bye.
Thank you. Okay, with that, now we move on to new business. Been here the whole time. So we have a design review and scenic route for 300 North Mission for part of the.
2 old business items that need to get.
Did I miss an old business?
Continue then.
Oh, well, that's right. That's right. Let's skip that page. Where'd it go? Use the back. of my notes. Okay, yeah, we have items, that will do subdivision 2206, CUP 2206, design review 2223, scenic route 2215, 209 to 217 Simmons Street, Steve Cowan. They've asked that to be continued to February 7th. And then CUP 2103 and 2133 at 111 North Sampson Trail also asked to be continued to February 7th. So I believe we need a motion to continue both items to February 7th meeting.
I move to continue both items to the February 7th meeting.
I was.
Including
I-
application
I second
number,
it.
please.
Yeah, let's do.
All right, so I
One
move
at a
to
time.
continue subdivision 2206 and CUP DR and scenic route 209 to 17, as well as CUP 2103 DR 2133 to the February 7th meeting.
I
Bill, am I
second.
allowed to accept that?
Go ahead, second.
Yes, I think that's an
Okay.
appropriate designation. We're good.
Perfect.
I second that.
We have a motion to approve and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
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 All opposed? All right, motion carries. They've been continued to the next meeting. Now we move to the new business, design review 2226 and 22 scenic route 2216. For the Camp Pinewood, we have Charlie Morgan. Or,
Yeah, Charlie's not here. I
oh,
can speak.
okay, yeah, if you'd like to come up and present. Name and address, please, for the record.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, my name is Randy Welk. I live at 108 Mather Road, which is adjacent to Camp. It's owned by Camp Pinewood on the property of that 300 North Mission Street. I wasn't aware that I was going to need to give a presentation, but I'll give a quick overview. All right, so this is, all right, the description here is, I don't think very accurate, I'm sorry. There's two projects and the one here is not this one. Should I speak to the one on the paper first or the one that you have on the screen?
So what is?
I think that's the existing building, correct?
This is not. This is a new one that we would like to construct.
Okay.
What is the other project?
The other project that's described here is the lodge that we have on camp. We have porches and we want, in essence, to cover them so we can use them as indoor dining.
We asked Charlie about this in the email and he said that was not happening at this time.
Okay, so Charlie Morgan is on the executive board. My colleague Kyle and I are staff at camp. Both of us are new to staff this fall. But I do believe the board had intended to table it, but in a conversation with Charlie, he said, since it was described here, to go forward with it.
Wait, which application do
It
you
would-
have?
So they included both building permit in their overall application. Don't believe, because Charlie had told us that that was not happening, we included the other dining hall.
Yeah, because
And that's fine. I don't need to speak to that.
Okay, so,
the one I remember seeing is the one with the,
because we had the one with the existing building, you're adding the two lean-tos with the that's the dining hall and the dining and storage.
And that's what's described here.
So that's what you
on
would,
your agenda.
okay,
okay.
so that's what you would,
It's not described here, but I can speak to it.
so you'd be doing the dining hall with the expansion of the wings, or, right?
Yeah, that's the project that's described on the agenda.
And then the new building.
Will
And
there,
the new building is a different project, yes.
will there be another application for the new building?
So I did not review the expansion because I was told it was not part of it. So I've not had a chance to thoroughly.
And I'm fine if we don't want to discuss that one because it was tabled.
Okay, so with that. So, okay, what do we have in our package? We just need to redo.
So the staff discussion that you have here,
Right, that is all about the new bunkhouse.
Right.
But we can do just the new bunkhouse now.
You'd have to do both.
Well, no,
But can we do anything with it? Could we even approve it today? Or- Because the other one, and if they were submitted together, we can improve them together.
I think we could put a condition of approval note in the conditions that says this is both bunkhouse and dining hall expansion should be submitted.
Separately.
Bill,
Yeah,
can we exclusively review the bunkhouse and then only have that listed in the findings to continue this discussion tonight, or should we readjust?
well, I mean, the application is for the whole thing that was submitted, but Brian's saying that he was told some part of it wasn't, I guess I'm not really tracking what's happened here.
I'm not either.
I think it
Charlie
might be wise to
Why don't we just
postpone this
regroup
and have a
Yeah.
complete package.
Yeah.
I mean, I hate to do that to you, but if, especially that you waited this long, but I think it might be simpler to have a complete package of exactly what we're gonna approve and not pull out anything and have the staff report be an inaccurate staff report.
Yeah, I think it's probably best not to do this piecemeal would be my recommendation unless, unless Brian, Brian's the one that's gonna have to live with this. So Brian, unless you've.
Yeah, I guess.
It would certainly be a lot cleaner if we just continued it all to the next meeting and we reviewed it all. as it was submitted. And it would get them an approval faster for both units without having to restart from scratch on the second part. Right, like.
Yeah. It sounds like it's better for everybody just to bump this to the next meeting.
Yeah, I think it would have a complete package with complete, exactly what you want. It could be done on, I mean, I don't think it's gonna delay anything because we still have to do the other one anyway. We can have it all done at one time.
Everybody's digging a hole.
And we'll try to get you early on the list so you don't have to wait all day or all night.
Basically, so you want two proposals, one for this and one for the other, where they put it two together, you want to both separate?
I believe we have everything we need at this point. I'll let you know if if we need more. But we just.
Sorry, guys.
Oh, yeah, no, we want to make sure it's right.
No, and Mr. Welk, this is the administrative person. We have everything and you guys paid the full application for both. We just need clarification from Charlie at this point on what is truly being pursued. So that's all we need at this point.
Okay. One quick question. I was told that we had a permit on the bunkhouse at one point and it expired. Is that true or is that?
It is possible. I haven't looked that closely at the history on it.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Okay, great, thanks.
So.
Yeah, I guess I won't make a motion.
I'll-
Good.
I move to continue DR 22-26 and SR 22-16 to the next meeting in order to give staff sufficient time to
February
review the complete application.
February 17th.
To the February 7th meeting.
Yes.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to continue this. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion is carried. All right, thank you guys. Again, sorry.
Thank you.
Let me get this one.
We're learning to think. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, looks like we have one sign.
Yes. Brian, will you scroll?
Meredith, are we there?
So
Horse
we
simulator?
have the Jug Mountain Ranch Golf Simulator, Lakefront, what used to be Remax. It is using the existing downcast lighting. It is charcoalish in color with some off-white text. We had a little bit of some business license snafooery to get through, as you can't have a sign if you don't have a business license. So all signage was pending business license, and now they are a licensed business where you can go and play pretend golf.
No.
I've heard that they have pretend tournaments with real money at this pretend
Wow.
golf place.
They do at the Foresters.
That sounds fun.
It's there now. This was the Foresters
Yep.
one. It's moved
It's
there.
no longer at
okay.
Foresters. It's been relocated.
Okay.
That's where it is.
What?
Between golf clubs and foresters.
I thought that was a little dangerous.
But that's all. It's quite a bit below the allowable square footage of signage, and I did do like a little bit of an audit on the full parcel because it's a very, very large parcel. But most of the signage over there faces in towards like the central plaza, so it doesn't really qualify as publicly signage visible from a public space. So that's all kind of private signage for the most part, and it's a significant improvement from all of the window space being taken up by phone numbers and property listings. So improvement.
All right.
You want to have to have a motion for that or?
No, it's just our information.
Okay.
I think we've had only one that we had to go back and forth with, that one real estate one.
Yeah.
So, okay, and then moving on, we got dates, potential dates, I believe, for a training session. With that, it would be good, I think, maybe to, Christine made the point of going over, because the recommendations that we had sent to the city for the short-term rental codes changed slightly from what we suggested. So I think it would be good, even though we've seen them in the papers and I've seen them and stuff, other people, I don't know if all the commissioners have seen it, but maybe have that as part of the training, a little section of here's, because we're going to be seeing them obviously, and here's what's coming up. And if we can see the new application that they're going to be doing as well, to kind of familiarize ourselves with that, would be good to know exactly what we need to require.
Yep.
And then as far as the dates,
Are we just like looking at these? Are
we just picking one or do we need more
Yeah.
than one?
Unless you guys really want to do a lot of training.
I was going to say, whoa, we got to learn that much?
Once.
I've seen this for like a month and a half. I don't
Um,
know.
These are all options that the Legion Room is not yet booked. As of like 48 hours ago. I haven't sent them all to Bill yet to see when he's available, or to any other wonderful special guests to see who's available, but these are upcoming dates.
Fortunately, Bill is on the Teams meeting and has his calendar up, so we're good.
Haha.
Shoot. I'm pretty sure I left my calendar on my desk at work when I was frantically packing my stuff up.
So are we looking to pick one?
Yeah. I would maybe say somebody short timer.
I'm a short timer. You guys do your thing.
I would say narrow the list.
Good point. Yeah.
Well, my birthday is February 22nd, if you want me to have my birthday off.
Okay.
There you go. Cross that one off.
All right, that's narrowing the list.
Yeah, good job.
I don't know if Fridays work too well for me. I guess.
Yeah,
it
I
depends
like
on-
to cut off Fridays as well as February 6th because that immediately precedes our planning and zoning the next day.
Good call.
But it might be nice to have that, at least have gone over the short-term rental stuff before that meeting, if that pre-app is gonna come in as an actual.
Good point, yeah.
You also have
Fun
your
fact
agenda
about
for February
pre-apps.
7th.
The application deadline is staggered slightly, so you won't ever see it on the next meeting. It'll always be at least one meeting.
Oh,
Non-issue, sounds like.
And you may want to take a look at your expected agenda for February 7th, adding 3 public hearings to it before you have 2 very long nights in a row.
Yeah, because if we do the 6th or the 8th, we're going to be boom, boom, boom.
We had to continue, huh?
How long can you stay focused?
yeah.
What is February 24th?
Oh, sorry. That is a Friday.
So February 1st, February 15th, and February 24th are all wide open for me.
Oh, me too. Those same dates. So I'll back up, but
I'll throw out the 15th.
okay. Just to get things rolling, I guess.
Kind of like the first. I don't know if anybody travels for Valentine's Day or plans that holiday.
Should note that if you decide to have it on the 15th, that has to be a daytime issue.
Early one.
So we need it.
Oh, that is a good note. I didn't pay attention.
I'm good with the first.
I'm good with the first.
Me too.
Should be fine. Whatever. Should be fine.
Yeah.
We're planning same time, 4:30 in the
You don't need to
afternoon.
learn too much more about it.
I mean, I'd like to for at least gonna be in, but
Is 4:30
I do the
okay?
job till the end.
4:30?
Works for me.
Bill, should we have a motion, or since they're not doing any action stuff, do we not need a motion?
Well, I mean, do you have it on the agenda as an action item?
No.
Mm-mm.
Okay, I mean, since we're setting a special meeting, why don't we just exercise the chairman's discretion to call a special meeting for this purpose on the 1st and not make it an action of the board, just to keep this going?
Okay.
So, all right. Anything from the legal side? I heard mention short-term rentals. Anything in terms of like due process? What would you guys like to hear about from me? What sort of refreshers would you want to hear about?
Standard bill presentation is general due process and open meeting law, which is always helpful to hear more on. If there's anything else specific that you guys want to learn about.
Do a little bit more on options if we do deny items.
Okay.
I think that would be good, I think.
Yeah.
Maybe a review of,
Yeah, so if we run into something, yeah, it's gonna get denied and just kind of better state. Yeah.
I don't know.
A well-oiled machine if needed, you know.
making sure that we're not missing steps or leaving holes that have been covered.
Yeah.
I think that's a good one, because that's what I always feel at a loss with. Like you're kind of just stuck going, now what?
Yeah, I think that would be good.
So how to deny an application
Well,
and sort of,
I mean, yeah.
options
legally
for
deny
denial.
Yeah.
And maybe if it's not necessarily conditional use permit, if it's something else, yeah, just options and procedures.
Even language that you would prefer to be used.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For different scenarios.
Yeah, for denial and then for also sending it back to the applicant for further work.
I mean, it seems like, in my opinion, we see like, what, 2, 3, maybe 4 different scenarios at most, and it would be pretty easy to have some sort of routine type motion.
Yeah.
That we just rely on. Yeah. I don't know if that's something that I've thought about that in the past. If that's something you could put into just like the staff report, right? Like,
if you choose,
here's 3 options.
Part of the training session is going to be going through the staff report, how you guys should read it and analyze it, and any changes and improvements you would like to see. So yeah, take a note of it.
Okay.
I have a question for Michelle.
Yes.
Valley County impact area, and they were gonna evaluate what goes on in the city of McCall and how they're gonna match up the zoning rules and regulations and all that type of stuff. Did that ever happen? Or is that, what happened? What's the deal there?
Yeah, that's a great question. That's actually why I turned on my camera. Because after you were done discussing this, I wanted to let the commission know that there is a joint meeting and you will be receiving a meeting invite for it. It's between City Council and Valley County, the commissioners, the Board of Commissioners. And it's basically going to go over the McCall impact area. So this is essentially an informal meeting, meaning it's not part of a specific process yet, but it's to get a sense of, first of all, to sort of define what's what is an impact area? How does McCall impact area work? What's working, what's not working? And then we'll have Cinda present, because the Valley County Planning and Zoning Commission has looked at McCall impact area and made some recommendations to the county commissioners. So we'll go over those. We'll have kind of some general recommendations from the city, and then talk about next steps in terms of how we want to move forward with the 10-year review process. So it really is an opportunity for our electeds to talk to each other directly. But I wanted to invite all of the Planning and Zoning Commission to attend either in person or remotely to that meeting. It's not necessarily a meeting that will have a lot of opportunity for, there won't be opportunity for the general public, but it is a public meeting. So anyways, I did want to let all of you know that that's coming up next Thursday, 6 o'clock at the Best Western. And we'll also be sending you a Teams invite if you want to tune into that meeting.
What is that? Thursday. Read your mind.
Yeah, thanks for jumping ahead, but that was the next
So the
thing I was going to
19th?
bring up.
The 19th, right?
Yeah, the 19th at 6 o'clock.
Okay. Is there any more on the meetings? Are we good on that? I bring up one other item. Austin, who was appointed in September, has not been able to make the meetings, and he just got too busy. So today, I believe he resigned today. So we do have an open position in our impact zone for a commissioner. So I assume the staff will be advertising that in the paper. And so if anybody knows anybody that you think would be good, please recommend them to submit their applications for.
I'm not sure I understand.
Order 3 pizzas.
And what about advertising for my position? Will you guys be doing that soon, or does that work?
I was going to wait until closer.
We want to keep you around for a while longer.
May 1st is my, I'm out of the house May 1st. so
Well, you
please
can still do
city
the May.
address.
Yeah,
You can do the May meeting.
Don't run
Can
from it
resign
like
that
that.
May 1st meeting,
The May meeting,
The May meeting,
the May.
the first week.
because you would, yeah.
For a few days.
You'd be close enough. Yeah. We'll try to make it easy, short one.
I know, it's,
But yeah, so you need an impact zone person preferably, if possible.
It has to be an impact zone, right?
They have first preference. If
They have first
we
preference.
advertise and can't find anybody, then we can.
Yeah, because we have 2 of those, because Tony is one.
Tony's impact.
Impact, yeah, I mean, we have 2 impact,
Tony and Tom are.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Tony and Tom.
Yep.
And what was Austin?
Also, there's 3 total. There's 3 impact, 4 city.
Oh, okay. I thought we only had 2 impact. Okay, so there's 3. Okay. Okay, and I think that is everything on the agenda. I am open for a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion that at 7:11 Tuesday evening, we adjourn.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. We are adjourned. I'm not going to ask for anything opposed. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you.